Wednesday morning, it was Dannis and Sarah together who picked me up. Jennifer saw and she scowled, but she said nothing. As I dropped my overnight bag on the back seat beside me, Dannis winked at me through the mirror. I thought I'd drive so I can take that bag straight home. How are you, Brittany? I'm all right, Dannis. You? He smirked and then cast a look at Sarah, who was fiddling with her makeup bag. I've never been so happy in my life. I never thought it would happen to me, but he shrugged his shoulders. I'm glad it did. When we arrived at school, Sarah turned around in her seat. Come on, I'll work my magic on that Hickey again. That way you don't have to wear that shirt. Must be really hot. I nodded in relief, but just as I was about to pull down the collar of the turtleneck shirt I was wearing, Jennifer sauntered into sight. She was fast approaching the car. What was she up to? Sarah saw my look and nodded. I'll do it during lunch in the bathroom. Come on, Brittany. Then the girl climbed out of the car after kissing Dannis. Jennifer watched us walk into school, a curious look on her face that told me she wasn't going to let this be. Obviously, she thought I was up to something and she was determined to find out what. And if she couldn't find out, she'd just make sure I was in so much trouble I couldn't do it anyway. During first period, Mr. Cooks, our grizzled teacher, kept casting me curious looks. It was almost as if he could see the Hickey on my neck straight through the fabric of my shirt. Already I felt extremely warm and uncomfortable. Sarah cast me a mischievous look when she said goodbye to me in the hall, but no nasty surprises awaited me during second period. Bob didn't talk much, as was usual, but he cast me a warm look. Jennifer, on the other hand, stirred her minions up into a frenzy so that they all started taunting me with the too warm shirt. It was annoying more than anything, but still, I was rather frustrated by the end of the period. I stalked all the way to third, where I planned on giving Alexander a piece of my mind. Of course, when I got there, I realized I couldn't very well do that with the entire classroom present. I sat down in the back next to Sarah, glowering at him and glaring every time he turned to smirk at me. The exchange didn't go unnoticed to the rest of the class, especially not to Jennifer. It wasn't fair that for a stereotyped slutty blonde bitch, she was pretty smart. Alexander didn't come near me at all, and despite my anger, I noted that the physical tension was building again. How unfair. I wanted to be furious with him for forcing me to wear the stupid turtleneck. Yet most of the time, all I could think about was kissing him like yesterday, feeling his body pressed against mine. When class was over, Sarah helped me out by asking me some questions about the homework and insisted on discussing a project she had for art with me. By the time she was done talking, the entire classroom had emptied. Only Jennifer stood right in front of Alexander, pressing herself up against him. It was hilarious to see how he was backing away, till he hit the chalkboard, his eyes frantically trying to meet mine, begging me to get my creepy stepsister away from him. Jennifer knew she wasn't having the desired effect on him yet. She kept cooing at him, making flirty comments. For some reason, Alexander was scrunching up his nose, as if he smelled something he didn't like. I smirked at Sarah, who nodded, and we both made our way over to them. Alexander cast me a relieved look, obviously thinking I was going to free him from Jennifer. Instead, I met Jennifer's eyes and smiled at her. Good day. Bye, Mr. Clinton. Then I waltzed out the door with a laughing Sarah hot on my heels. Alexander's mortified look was something I wouldn't forget, ever. As we reached the cafeteria, Sarah wondered, "You're not scared? He's going to fall for your stepsister's charm after all." I plopped down ungracefully in a chair next to Bob and shook my head, still laughing. No way. Did you see his face? I resolved into a fit of giggles that was amplified by Bob looking at me curiously. Sarah nodded with a smile. Just checking. I know Alex would never fall for a girl like your sis anyway. He deserved to be left in her clutches after what he did yesterday. Revenge was very sweet. Kate! Although my skin did feel unnaturally tight, I felt tired and a little drained. I was guessing it had something to do with not getting my dose of Alexander. Oh well, it was worth it to see him look so horrified when we left him with Jennifer. I finished my lunch in 10 minutes and was just about to get up with Sarah to go to the bathroom to finally fix that Hickey. But a shadow fell over the table from behind me, and without looking, I knew it was Alexander. What do you want? I asked without looking up. My skin was tingling with all the tension again, and I had to fight down the urge to jump up and smother him in kisses. I want you in my classroom right now. He growled the words. Oh, he was really pissed off, wasn't he? I shrugged, still not looking up. For what reason, Mr. Clinton? Did I do something wrong? I smirked in Sarah's direction, enjoying myself just a little too much. Do you want attention again today, Brittany? Alexander said, not growling now, but still sounding very pissed off. Fine, I'm coming, I told him, at long last looking behind me to meet his eyes. Only then did I realize that his white dress shirt was soaked, showing off his muscular chest as it clung to his skin tightly. How the hell did that happen? Then I narrowed my eyes at the group of girls to our right that was openly ogling him as if he was eye candy. I got up out of my seat and followed Alexander hurriedly as he stalked out of the cafeteria. He obviously wasn't in the mood to wait for me. He took me through the empty hallways to his English classroom. I wondered how many classes he taught. Biology. He held open the door for me so I could enter first, and then he slammed it shut behind him, locking the door with an ominous click. I swallowed, but I wasn't worried he'd hurt me. I knew he'd never intentionally do that. Of course, Alexander looked a vision with his white shirt wet, the top few buttons undone. Some of his dark hair had gotten wet too, and it clung to his forehead. My eyes just had to follow the drop of water that ran down his face across his throat to disappear into the V of his shirt down his chest. Alexander's stormy gray eyes were nearly black again as he frowned at my face. "Why didn't you help me?" "She damn near tried to rape me, Britt. I had to throw water on her to get her away from me." He stalked over to me and I backed up into his desk, my skin shivering and my hands itching to follow the path of that single drop of water across his skin. The fierce, commanding presence, the glare, it made me aware of how masculine he was. He was used to getting his way, to being obeyed. His every move proved that. He trapped me between him and the desk, one hand on either side of me, but he didn't touch me. I smiled at him. "You deserved it, Alexander." I met his angry eyes with my own without hesitation, showing him that for all his bluster, he didn't intimidate me. "Deserved it," he growled. I laughed, feeling confident and happy at having managed to upset him as much as he had me. Yes, I yanked the collar of my shirt sideways to show him the hickey. "Because of you, I have to wear this stupid, way too warm shirt." With my other hand, I poked his chest, ignoring the sparks that ignited at the touch. His black eyes followed the curve of my neck to rest on the red mark on my skin there, and then he grinned, that male satisfaction appearing on his face again. "I told you not to cover it up a gramo short." He didn't look all that angry anymore though. He didn't even look remorseful. I remembered how he'd somehow known about the lullaby last night. With that eerily accurate text message, angry. I poked him in the chest again. "I have to cover it up, you jerk. My stepmother and sister would kill me if they saw it. Oh, and remember, the deal is off." He quirked an eyebrow at me, amused now for some reason. "So you said a run." I did not read your mind though. I growled and ignored the absurdity of the whole situation. "Then how the hell did you know to text me about the lullaby?" Mind reading was impossible. Instead of replying, Alexander leaned into me, his breath filtering across my lips. "I think we're even. You have a hickey, I've got a wet shirt, and we'll have a whole classroom of drooling girls here in a short while." That thought made a hot spark of jealousy stab through me. I did not want all those teenage girls staring at his chest. "I did not read your mind, Agramo Croy," he whispered, "and I think you're really sexy when you're mad." After that, he pressed his lips to mine, kissing me fiercely and possessively. I moaned as my body responded, burning warmth spreading through me and pooling low in my body. I automatically spread my legs so he could step in between them. He lifted me effortlessly off the floor and set me down on the edge of his desk. He didn't stop at that, pushing me down further so I was on my back, his body hovering above mine. I was wrapping my legs around his hips, moaning at the contact of his erection as I pulled him closer to me. He broke the kiss to groan, his nearly black eyes roaming down my body as he skimmed a hand across the curve of my breasts. I arched my back as the touch rubbed against my nipple, the skin suddenly painfully tight there. Then he pulled aside the collar of my shirt, tracing his tongue over the hickey. "It's not a real mark, agramo schwa," he whispered hotly. A real mark wouldn't fade away, but this will do for now. My thoughts were too incoherent to understand what he was saying. My body was on such a high that it felt like I could burst at any moment. Those hands of his rubbing my breasts and his lower body straining against mine through the fabric of our clothes. Suddenly, he pulled away, and I whined at the loss of body contact. It made him chuckle as I glared at him from under drooping eyelashes. It wasn't fair that he had such a strong effect on me. It seemed one touch would send me down an endless spiral downwards where all I could do was crave for more. As I sat up and pulled my shirt straight, he smirked at me with satisfaction. "You are mine, Brittany." I shivered at the stark possessiveness in his voice, but despite the urge to tell him he didn't own me, a big part of me felt strongly appreciative of the power reflected in him. He was so very male and dominant and powerful. When I felt I had fixed myself enough to look presentable, I stood up. My legs were still wobbly, but I ignored that and closed the distance between us again. I kept my eyes firmly on his face and willed myself to look stern. "I told you the deal was off, Alexander," he glared at him. "So you did a gramokroi, but I did not break it." He was deadly serious as he replied, his eyes on my lips as I spoke. "You're not allowed to just kiss me like that anymore." Then I spun around and stalked towards the door, planning to leave and not think about him for the rest of the day until I had to see him again at our date. Alexander had something else in mind though, because he stopped me at the door, an amused smile on his lips. "All right, I will ask your permission to kiss you first next time. Now before you leave, let me fix your hair." Ask my permission to kiss? God, he was impossible. I shivered as he ran gentle fingers through my auburn curls, straightening my hair carefully so that no one could tell I'd just been heavily making out with him. "There, I will see you tonight. Agramo qua. Don't let Sarah bully you into wearing something uncomfortable." I heard a click as he unlocked the door and felt him brush his lips softly against my temple. He stepped away from me, running his hands through his own hair and then started rebuttoning his shirt. Shocked, I realized I had been responsible for undoing it. "Go, Britt. You don't want to be late for your next class," he said, amused at my stare. I nodded. "See you later, Alexander." Then I walked out the door into the luckily still empty hall. As the door fell shut behind me, I felt a soft touch on my mind, and then the image of Alexander and I on his desk, both of us naked as he drove my body to pleasure. That was not my thought. Asshole was seriously messing with my mind. I could hear Alexander laughing through the door. And damn it, now Sarah still hadn't covered up the hickey, so I had to walk around in that way to hot turtleneck even longer. I had only just enough time to pick up my books and bag, and then I had to go back to class. Sarah was by my side though, with another knowing smile, although she was occasionally distracted by texting Dannis. Thanks to Alexander, I spent the rest of the day thinking of him and what we were going to do on our date. I was nervous about that now. What was he going to expect of me? Did he want sex? It certainly seemed that way, and despite our serious kissing, I wasn't sure I was ready for that so soon. "Hey, baby," a low voice suddenly said, right next to me. Shocked, I stepped back, away from Fort. Why did I keep walking into him? He was so bloody sneaky. "Leave me alone, Fort. I'm not in the mood for your crap," I snapped at him. Sidestepping so I could walk around him, I continued on my way with Sarah still by my side. She was shooting him angry glares, but Fort didn't seem impressed by that. "Not in the mood? That sounds promising," the guy said with a smirk. He grabbed my wrist and spun me around. "Fort, let her go," Sarah yelled angrily while I stared up at his face, imagining a dark wolf prowling behind those eyes of his. "Oh, shut up, freak. You and your witchy boyfriend don't scare me." Fort snapped at Sarah, pushing her away from us roughly. Sarah was slammed sideways into a row of lockers with a loud bang. Surely the teachers had heard that and would come running now. But as I looked around, all I saw was students gathering around to watch. Not a single adult around. Fort turned his attention back on me. "I know you want to be with me, baby. There's no need to play hard to get. I find it a rather tiring game." He hadn't let go of my wrist and pulled me into him so hard that I stumbled. "You wouldn't talk this way if your dad was in town. Fort. He's going to punish you when he's back. My brother has already spoken to him," Sarah said, her voice controlled. It reminded me of Alexander when he was really mad. Fort laughed loudly, throwing his head back as if he found it really funny. There were several other guys in the crowd around us that laughed along. It was rather creepy. "Sarah dear, my father's ancient history. I'm in control now." At those words, he wrapped an arm tightly around my waist. I could feel the hard planes of his body and, to my disgust, his arousal as well. I tried elbowing him hard since I wasn't in the position to knee him in the crotch, but it hurt me more than him. Damn, he was hard. Suddenly, Sarah was by my side, yanking the collar of my turtleneck down to reveal the hickey for everyone to see. "She's taken Fort. You know my brother Alexander. If he finds out you touched her, he'll kill you," Sarah hissed. It was hard to understand what she was saying, and I only understood because she was right next to my ear. Still, Fort quickly let go of me and then stepped back, his eyes tight and filled with hatred. In the crowd, those same guys that had laughed now all wore frowns as if they too had heard what Sarah had said. No one else seemed to notice though. They were all busy speculating about who had given me the hickey. A lot of them actually thought it had been Sarah. One voice stood out though. "I knew it. I knew you were hiding something." "Jennifer? Of course she had to see this." "See? Come Brittany, let's go." A soft tug on my hand was enough to get my feet moving. I followed Sarah through the halls to our next class. At the back of the crowd, I spotted Mr. Cooks, our grizzled math teacher. Why didn't he step in if he'd been here all along? "I'm sorry, Sarah, but with Thomas still away, my hands are bound," the fearsome-looking man said to my friend. Sarah just nodded as if she understood his reasons. That left me more questions than answers. Clearly, Fort had some sort of control over the teachers, or maybe just Mr. Cooks. Control that usually lay with Fort's father. But since he was gone at the moment, it had passed on to him. I couldn't think of anything that would make sense, though. Nor the fact that those guys in the crowd had definitely heard what Sarah had said, even though she'd been so quiet that I had trouble hearing it, and I had been right next to her. Did they all have super hearing? Sarah didn't want to explain anything when I asked, though, and I couldn't very well ask her what was on my mind anyway during class. So soon enough, last period rolled around, and I happily hurried to the biology classroom. Maybe I could pry some answers from Alexander after class was done. When I got to the class, however, Alexander wasn't there. Instead, Mr. Clayton stood there. Where did Alexander go? Was he sick? Confused, I sat down in the back as usual, all by myself. I'm replacing Mr. Clinton for today, class, because he had to take his younger brother, Bob Clinton, to the hospital, Mr. Clayton explained briefly. After that, he cut right to the chase and started explaining things about the subject we were working on in his boring, monotone voice. I hoped Bob was all right. It must have been an emergency or something. Class went agonizingly slow without Alexander, and it was that way for everyone. I constantly heard people sigh, and no one seemed to be looking at the chalkboard. Instead, we were all sort of doodling or staring out the window. I was the first out the door when the final bell rang. That was a first for everyone there, obviously, and I heard them whisper amongst each other as I left them behind. Sarah said to meet her outside at the car. Dannis would be waiting for us. He was, leaned against the hood of the car, playing with his phone. As I reached him, he opened his arms for a hug, and I gladly complied. There you all go, Chapter 10. It takes a while because I have to edit things. The next chapters are all written already, but I'm really unhappy with some of the background details in it, so I'm redoing that. Please vote and comment. It definitely helps to motivate me to write faster and update faster. Rough day, Brittany? He asked with a smile. I nodded. Yeah, run in with Fort. He called you a witch and then tossed Sarah into a row of lockers. Dannis froze and stared at me. He called me a witch? I shrugged. Yeah, I don't see why though. You look nothing like a witch. He laughed. Thanks. Is Sarah okay? But just at that moment, she appeared, bouncing up to us and jumping in his arms to smother him with kisses. Yeah, she's fine, I told him, although I doubted he was listening. Instead, I got in the car. I had just spotted Jennifer and Fort coming out of the school. Fort wasn't looking at us, but Jennifer was, and she had that evil look on her face that told me trouble was going to find me soon.